Hi, everyone. So excited. I'm here with my friend Molly McGrath. Molly is somebody that I've actually worked with for several years, and I find her incredibly fascinating. I think her work is fascinating. What she is, her soul gifts, what she's offering to the world is super great. And I thought she'd be a really unique person to talk to about what it's like to be a coach in the world with what I believe to be kind of a challenging population of folks. She obviously doesn't feel that way because she's excellent at it. Um, and just to learn more about what it's like to do what she does. So, Molly, would you just give a little bit of a background of, who you are and what you do?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
So my name's Molly McGrath, and I own a company called Hiring and Empowering. And I work in a very niche specific, and as Jamie said, challenging area. I work with attorneys. I work with small solo attorneys who are very much like all of us, entrepreneurs, and don't have the corporate backing and things of that nature. And I specifically picked only small solo law firms because I don't want to work with corporate America. I really want to go to the heartbeat of the business, and I want to help to empower them to make decisions and take action. So the bulk of our services of what we offer are recruiting and staffing for any position, from a receptionist to an associate attorney or somebody to buy their practice, and then consulting side of things and all thing people, emotions, communication, leadership, process, and profit.
Wow. You've perfected that.
Oh, I have.
Like so many, well, I think you must explain what you do quite often.
Yeah.
A lot of people sort of get frozen by that question. Like, I've been doing this for
Well, I've been doing it for 22 years. So,
Yeah.
and now that I've recently launched a podcast and teaching a lot on webinars, and I have a private Facebook group for all my clients, I'm getting better at it every day.
Just it's so hard for women to I think it's women, but it could be men too, to accurately explain what they do in a positive fashion without minimizing themselves in some way, right?
It's really fascinating, Jamie, because it's men too. And I'm really surprised by that. I work with attorneys, and I'd say my practice is 50-50 male, female. And I'm shocked. Like right now, the assignment that we have our clients doing is, now that with all that's going on, you have to adapt and you have to pivot and be virtual and be on Zoom like this, or be on camera, or record videos for some of your marketing. And they're just frozen. They could be in a courtroom, they could be in a client room, but being on camera, they just feel so vulnerable and real. And I remember I did too. I just started getting on video and speaking like this. I was thinking about this yesterday. It was April of last year. And when I would get in front of a camera or speak in front of a room, more than one-on-one, I'm really good one-on-one, I would cry. I would break down in tears. And as we all know about energy and emotions and all that, I just never thought I could get over it. And now it's my favorite thing to do.
Yeah, I can tell.
Yeah, I love it.
Me too. I'm getting into it too, especially with people I know well. Like, I know you so well.
Yeah.
And you know me so well. So this is like, we could be having this conversation with a glass of wine.
Yeah,
Basically the
exactly.
same.
Yeah.
So how did you end up, so you've been doing this for 22 years. How did you even get there or here?
All right, so that's a question I'm really learning to perfect with working with you, really getting anchored into my why and my soul journey. I wish I could say, well, no, I actually don't wish I could say. There was no blueprint, there was no map. This absolutely was not intentional. I was always a really good employee, and I was always really good to support entrepreneurs and be their right-hand person. So how I got into this was was lucky enough when I moved from New York to Denver 22 years ago to work for an organization that was a national organization for estate planning attorneys, by and large, super niche specific. And I teamed up with a coach, and I was his assistant.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go to conferences and I would just speak to people one-on-one. He would be the big Tony Robbins on stage. And then I would, I was his little minion where I just make sure everyone was okay and talk to them. And so often I would just speak one-on-one and people would say, how do you know that? How did you say that? Like, where did you get your training? And I would never say this out loud because I was speaking to attorneys, but I didn't even graduate from college. I have no formal education working with the top intellect in the country.
Yeah.
And so I had a tremendous amount of shame and guilt around that and embarrassment. And so I would just show up places. And now, being where I am now, it really was people seeing my light and seeing my essence and seeing my gift, but I couldn't see it myself. So I just kept showing up from a place of being a really good girl and a really good service and a really good employee. So I would, can you get on the phone and talk to my employee? Can you help my employees and things like that? And next thing you know, I'm like, my coach Molly. I'm like, what? I'm a coach? What do you mean a coach? I'm not a coach. And I would just keep showing up and showing up. And then people would say, you should write a book. You should write a book. Like, okay, I do what I'm told. So went on
So you
this
wrote a book.
journey and wrote a book. And everyone will say to me, wow, how did you write a book? And after I wrote my third book, they would say, how did you write a book? What was that process like? I'm like, I don't know. I just kept showing up. I just kept showing up. And in hindsight, I think what it was is I am a caretaker. Well, I'm a recovering caretaker.
Yeah. You can still be a caretaker without being, codependent.
I'm a caretaker with healthy boundaries. How about that?
There you go. Perfect. Awesome.
Yeah. So I just would keep showing up, and now knowing that I would just speak from my truth, not realizing what I was saying or doing. And the more I just kept following the invites and I kept saying yes, even if I was shaking in my boots, I realize now I think that's the secret to building a business, to building relationships, to really anything in life, is I do have this unique ability for being present and aware. And I never trusted my intuition, but my intuition was always guiding me. And I see that now. It was absolutely divinely guided the entire way. And I think how I got where I am now was just being a people person. And my greatest treasure in life is relationship. I am so deeply curious about humans, about their heart, their spirit, and their soul, first and foremost. I'm a really good listener, and I appreciate and value relationship over any other currency or resource in the world. And I think that was, finding your why and what drives you and anchoring to that every day and just showing up and saying yes. That's really, truly what I believe got me, even when I didn't believe in me, even when I didn't trust myself.
How did you know which invitations to follow and which ones to say, no, thanks?
Now that you say that, it really was my intuition of people who I felt safe with, people who I felt like it was an authentic relationship. I always say this, so I teach my clients, if it's not somebody that you'd go to the bar and have a beer with, or you don't lose time when you're speaking with them, then they're probably not the right person that you want to be hanging out with anyways. And I've always been that person of paying attention to, gravitating towards the people that I believe, had the light within them. So I knew there were a lot of people that I said no, especially in the business world, especially in the legal space. I just paid attention to my intuition, but I never would call it that. I would never trust that. And I remember even saying to you years ago, like, how do you know your intuition? And you helped me, you helped to show me, you've been following it all along.
I just didn't know what to call it.
Didn't know what to call it. And I worked so hard with you on trusting myself. Thankfully, I surrounded myself with really great mentors and really great leaders and coaches. So I'm just feel really grateful that I anchored to that and just follow their lead, so to speak.
Yeah. What were some really hard experiences or struggles, things that you struggle with in your field? What's tough?
Ego, first and foremost. And when I say that, what I mean is what's tough is when I have to come up against some of my clients, whether it be in the hiring process or the
Mm-hmm.
consulting process, and show up and own that I'm an expert and to
Mm-hmm.
own my voice and be able to really anchor into that and to push back on as well respectfully and not get bullied.
Yeah.
So, and for a long time prior to working with you, I gave into that. Like,
Yeah.
well, they're an attorney. They're the highest intellect. They must know better. And that's been the toughest piece. And dealing with narcissism. I've had past business partners that were classic narcissists. One in
Mm-hmm.
particular that I was with for 16 years. And it
Yeah.
wasn't until I was able to break free from that relationship and unravel it with your help
Mm-hmm.
to see that's been the biggest piece is where I abandoned my intuition.
How do you, in relationship with people who have these narcissistic patterns, how do we lose ourselves? What happens?
Well, they're really good at convincing you that you don't know what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the biggest piece of they're very dynamic,
Mm-hmm.
very engaging. So that's the hardest part is
Yeah.
just knowing that now that I know, I always tell people I believe I have a self-taught PhD in narcissism um, because the first time somebody said the term, it was a business coach that we brought in, and he said I want you to study this and how to communicate with people and how to get out of the relationship. It's textbook. It's absolutely textbook. So the hard part about it is they show up just like a beacon of light for you, and just that you will never be able to survive without them, that they have the secrets to everything, and it's very convincing.
Yeah.
And once you get in, it's almost like doing a deep dive into the, deep end of the pool.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty quick and fast.
And I see this also in spiritual communities too,
Mm,
that the lead is a very charismatic person that people really genuinely want to be around, actually. They're magnetic in some ways, but bit by bit your own self-trust is eroded.
yeah. Your self-trust, I think your confidence, in hindsight, there was another female business partner that was in it with me, and
Mm-hmm.
her and I were sick all the time. We
Oh,
would show
interesting.
up because every 90 days we would travel and do speaking engagements. And I look back now, and I literally, before I had to speak at a national conference in front of attorneys, I had lost my voice when I was like, something's not right here. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. I'm starting to not trust him. I would lose my voice before I would speak because in hindsight, when I would get up and speak next to him, he would squash me and take me out at the
Mm-hmm.
knees in the front of the room. But it was a very passive aggressive,
Yeah.
backhanded comment or compliment.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I realized that I would get sick all the time, and my anxiety went through the roof to the point that I kept getting sick,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't hear that message. So the universe took a sledgehammer and came over my head, and I got shingles.
Mm.
And it was just one thing after another, and I'm so grateful for my exposure. If I had not been living in the spiritual space, working with people like you and Noah, and my yoga practice, and then getting deeply curious about breath work and
Mm-hmm.
all this different work, I probably would still be in that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I know for a fact it would have been.
Mm.
Without the awareness of this, and I'm so excited about this time we're in right now and the
Mm-hmm.
spiritual awakening that is occurring. And now business owners, like today, I have a private Facebook group for attorneys. And
Yeah.
these are my clients and prospective clients and things of that nature. And I had a Reiki person come on and
Mm.
do a session today in it's a legal marketing group, and teach them
What?
about managing your energy. And it posted about an hour ago and it has 83 views.
That's excellent.
Yeah, so
That
I'm
is
really
excellent.
committed now, since I've come out the other side, to soften the industry
Mm.
and to bring some balance, and to definitely bring this spiritual essence to there, and the messaging to it, and teaching them, as you and I know, the body keeps score, and you
Mm-hmm.
really have to start paying attention to that first and foremost before your
Yeah.
revenue.
I'm so curious. Have you noticed any patterns of trauma in attorneys? Any
Yes.
shared experiences, any shared beliefs or patterns?
Yeah, so beliefs, these are their words that they've handed to me over the past 20 some years. They have
Mm.
an imposter syndrome, where they really
Really?
believe that they're not good enough. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I would say 80+% of the attorneys
Mm.
that I talk with, once, because one of the gifts I bring is I do bring that safety to them, and they
Mm.
trust me, and then they just break down, and
Mhm.
the vulnerability and the raw truth that comes out. So they do feel like they're, so it's almost like that Napoleon complex,
Mhm.
where, they don't feel good enough. They don't feel worthy enough from a place.
Mhm.
Mentally, yes, but when it comes to relationship, when it comes to vulnerability, they're just show up so hardwired. So you won't
Mhm.
see a lot of emotions when I'm on video with them. They won't smile, not all, but typically,
Mhm.
very addictive, as you probably all have seen the studies, are the highest rate of addiction and suicide.
Wow.
Um,
I did
and
not know that.
oh, you
Addiction in
didn't?
attorneys? No, I had no idea.
Oh, yeah.
I don't see
It's
any attorneys. I don't think. Yeah,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, it's one of the highest professions for addiction
Wow.
and suicide. Yeah. So the patterns are really just a tough exterior. The belief systems at the core of it is they don't believe that they're good enough.
Mm.
And that therefore they that trickle down effect to their employees, that nothing is ever good enough for them. So
Mm.
they lead with unrelenting standards. And you and I talked about this at my last session, that book that you shared, of Addiction to Perfectionism.
Mhm.
And they are highly, highly addicted. There's a saying that I had saw once in the legal community at one of the they hide out in their work, so you don't have to see who they really are.
Wow. How
And
painful.
they're workaholics, so
Mm.
they very much rugged individualists.
Mhm.
They have anti-authoritarian complex, and
Mhm.
so, which most entrepreneurs do. But couple that with being a rugged individualist, and then having that imposter syndrome, most often they will tell me. So often I will get phone calls from attorneys, and they'll say let's say one or two things to me. I just need you to know I have ADD or
Mm.
ADHD. Like, every entrepreneur does to some extent. Or they will tell me, I've been told that I'm manic or schizophrenic.
My goodness,
Yeah,
really?
they come in with these heavy, like, clinical
Yeah.
diagnosis of
Labels. Wow, that's that's super interesting too.
it's a pattern that runs through the industry. And I think it's because, if I had to guess, they very rarely, when I hear these comments from people coming to me, it's because they were never provided a safe place, a safe container to really just unload. They have to feel like they are in performance mode all the time. Like, take the statement, never let them see you sweat, and 10x that. It's
Yeah.
almost like, don't ever look stupid. Don't ever look vulnerable. Don't ever look real. And so to some extent, you know, they feel like they're walking around in a blender and they don't have a release for being able to go to a safe container, a safe space, and be able to, what I call, you know, I always tell my clients, I hold the puke bucket for you. Puke it all out, and then we'll figure out, you know, and just even in that releasing, they know nothing about releasing. And I'm being generalist right now,
Yeah.
and bringing that conversation to the community. They're so hungry for it. So if there are any healers or massage therapists or what have you, bringing that message into some of the highly, highly analytical and intellect
Yeah.
industries, they're so hungry for it and they're so desperate for it. But they have, and maybe it's because of the suicide and the addiction rate, they're so fearful. So often I'll hear from attorneys, well, you know, something about therapy will come up or what have you. They're like, that's going to be on your record. That's going to be on your record. They're so worried about somebody like exposing them.
Yeah. Fear of exposure.
And I think that they're trained that way in law school.
Yeah.
They're trained, they have beaten in their head malpractice. So don't trust anybody because you're going to get sued.
Mhm.
And fear of exposure, don't ever come unraveled because somebody will use it as evidence and can use it as a weapon against you.
I have so much compassion for them now.
Oh, oh my gosh. When I hear people make attorney jokes, I seriously get so, it's almost like somebody had just picked on Aiden or Ella. My
Yeah.
mama bear comes out because when I, you know, the clients I choose to work with, they share everything with me. And
Mhm.
it's no wonder, you know, that they get a bad rap to some extent because their exterior is so hard. They are constantly living in protection, self-protection. And
Yeah.
it's, I can't even imagine, it's that has to be the most, it is the most awful way to go about the world.
Yeah. If I could visualize it, it's like wearing a giant um, weighted suit
Mm,
around that's
perfect.
impenetrable,
Yeah.
like a
Hmm.
Hulk costume,
Yeah.
but like heavy.
Oh yeah. Very
Wow.
heavy and
Intense.
bulletproof.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
So how do you get in? Like how do you get these people to trust you if they're so impenetrable? What is it? How do you get in?
You know, once I kind of learned about their DNA and their makeup and their fears and their limiting beliefs and
Mhm.
what's stopping them, I always gently just say, you know, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but some of my attorneys that when they come to me, these are the words they tell me. This is what I'm hearing from them. And I love if I can be on Zoom and
Mm.
see their face and see their energy through that way, because when I normalize it and make them realize they're
Yeah.
not alone. And
Yeah.
I will tell you 100%, well, let me say this, the 100% of the clients that go forward with me say, how long have you had a camera in my head? How long have you, there's no way, like, or they'll say to me, are you a psychic? Like, are you a psychic?
And you
And
say
it's,
yes.
and then the ones who come, well, I never experienced that. No, I'm like, oh, thank you. Not my
Yeah, you're
client.
not open.
So
Yep.
the ones that just crumble, they're like, exactly. So if I can speak into their listening in a way that will allow them to just break open, then it's just like, oh, it's pure glory.
Mm.
The ones that are like, that's not me. Nope, I got it all together. That's not someone that I personally want to work with because I'm not equipped. I'm not a therapist. And I always tell people that, you know, I'm not equipped to be able to handle that.
And also, you don't want to work harder than they are.
I always say that I can't care
Yeah.
more about your life than you do,
Yeah. That's that's
which
a
is
recipe for
something I used
disaster.
to do. I would lose sleep. I would care more about what they did. And that's how I got sick, honestly, because I
Mhm.
had no healthy boundaries whatsoever. I didn't have upfront crucial conversations. And I wasn't really clear in my intake process that this is a partnership. Like, you do a little bit of work, I do a lot of bit of work, and sometimes you work harder than me. And my job is just to hold a safe space for you. But when I first started out, I would do anything to get a client, right?
Yeah.
So I was over delivering and just like making myself bloody and just so
Mm.
carry, I have a coach who would say that I would carry their backpack and I would be like, oh, take off all your armor. I will gladly carry it around like the cross.
Yeah.
That's my job.
Yes, and that's really common in the entire profession of therapy and coaching, I think,
Hmm.
is for us to go home and lose sleep. It's
Yeah.
exactly what got me started on my inner work, is the fact that I was going home after working with people and crying
Oh
about
yeah.
their lives,
Yeah.
feeling their feelings for them.
Yeah. Oh my. Yes. Yes. Looking back, and I say this to you all the time, where was CRT?
Yeah,
Like, I wish, woulda, shoulda, coulda, and I got
right.
where I am because of, but yeah, I would lose so much sleep. My kids, they lost a lot because they would always say to me, you care more about your clients than you care about me. And
Mhm.
while that wasn't true, my actions and behaviors were 100% demonstrating that.
Mm. Mhm.
And then by the time they got like the crumbs of me, I always say, I always apologize to them. I'm so sorry that you got the stressed out, crappy version of me. Like that was all that was left for them. I was so exhausted.
Yeah. Mm. I think a lot of moms can relate to that, especially working moms.
Hmm.
It's really hard. How do you
Oh,
balance life now? How do you manage that?
for me, it's having upfront conversations with my kids and sitting, and it's a day to day to day reminder of
Mhm.
that. And just saying, okay, here's the deal. For a long time, I worked from home. I just moved into an office when my oldest got into high school,
Mhm.
probably driving age, when he had more of a break in his schedule and he'd come home for lunch because he was coming home and he would want to make lunch or play with the dog or what have you. And he was a prisoner in his own house because I
Yeah.
was on a conference call or I was focused, or he'd come in and I'd be knee deep in a project and I would just blow up. So it wasn't
Yeah.
fair. So for me, what worked was getting an office and making a very separate space from home and office. And
Yeah.
then having upfront conversations with the kids. This is when I'm available. This when I'm not available. Your failure to plan is not my crisis.
Yeah.
Like we need to go through this schedule, and still they blow up my phone. What's for dinner at 8 a.m. in the morning? Like, and then, stream of consciousness. They would use me as kind of their downloaded to-do list and blow up my phone all day. So just having, again, healthy conversations with them and
Yeah.
healthy boundaries in the beginning. So just that and time management, I really have to, when I make a promise to them, and I've given my kids full permission to hold me accountable to
Mm.
my promises, and knowing like it's your time. Even last week, Aiden was having a really hard time because through all this crisis and everything unraveling, and I was working from home a lot, and every time you walk by, I was on the phone. I was on a conference call, and I just wasn't present. And I felt
Mm.
myself going back to my old ways. And quite honestly, I could have stayed there. I could have went back there if I didn't give my kids permission. And the people that I love in my life, one thing that I know I need is accountability.
Yeah.
And I need people to shoot straight with me. I'm a straight shooter, and I need you to hold my feet to the fire. And great, thankfully, he came home and he goes, oh my God, I had them up. My kids see Noah and Jamie, and Aiden's 18,
Mhm.
going through a lot of anxiety right now with college and just stuff with his dad, and
Yeah.
a lot. And he came home, he goes, and I love it, he goes, I go, how was your appointment with Noah? He goes, we did a full clearing on you.
Isn't that great?
I was so great. I go, and he said it, and I didn't get triggered or anything. I
Yeah.
go, oh my God, I could absolutely see that. And
Yeah.
he just listed everything. And I was like, you are so right, buddy. Like,
Mm,
thank you for being. So I think it's having upfront conversations with your kids and then giving them permission. Like, it drives me to tears from a place of complete gratitude and happiness. There's no way I would ever go to my parents and tell them, that they're working too hard or anything. They would just tell you, you don't know what you're talking about. They would just
yeah.
treat you like a kid. So treating your kids like adults and giving them the permission and setting the boundaries and kind of the schedule, it really helps me tremendously.
And in what respect do you have for your children?
Oh,
Like, you don't see them as lesser than you,
oh,
or
they're
there's
my
no
teachers.
hierarchy necessarily. I mean, there is respect going back and forth.
Yes.
That's a
Yes.
really cool way to be a parent.
Oh, it's so freeing because I'm not carrying the cross for everyone. And
Yeah.
it's a partnership, it's a relationship. And it's so freeing for me to know that, and I don't think any of us are getting off scot free without therapy or some kind of healing, right? So
Yeah. We're all
and
getting
I always
well.
say this to them. I'm so grateful that like I am I'm working on all the crap that I give to you now when you're in your teenagers versus you guys carrying this around and not having your aha moment until you're in your 40s like I did.
Right. Yeah. No kidding, huh? I
Yeah.
love working with kids because I think, oh my God, they have their whole lives ahead of them.
Yeah.
They can resolve all of these patterns. They can bring this up to consciousness now rather than wait until they're like 40 or 38 or 52. I mean,
Yeah.
most of the people I see in my practice are in their late 30s to 60s because that's when there's enough energy to heal and enough awareness about what's going on in their lives.
Yeah.
But the new generation of kids, it's different.
Oh, they're just so inspiring. Even yesterday I was starting to spin a little bit, getting ready for coming into the work week with all the current state of affairs or something. I'm just stream of consciousness talking, making dinner. And I said something and Aiden like looks at me and he says, I'm going to remove myself from you right now because you are being really negative. Like we were talking about something and I just kept coming back at him. He's
Yeah.
like, I don't want to talk to you right now. I'm removing myself from your presence right now.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
I know. I love
I
it.
know a lot of parents could not hang with that, but I think that's really empowering. He's empowered to take
Oh
care of
yeah.
himself.
Yeah. And
Gee, that's
and to hear
wonderful.
them talk to their friends or have boundaries with their friends and come
Yeah.
back, they're it's just so amazing. And what a gift. I think every single kid should have to learn this way
Yeah.
before they leave for college.
Yep. I'm having the same experience with Mia, where she's got some of my old patterns that I have, handed down to her about of
Yeah.
caregiving and wanting to be a peacekeeper and not wanting to rock the boat. And but she's moving out of that. The more I do, the more healing I
Hmm.
do, the more she just organically shifts.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so the conversations she has with her friends, I would never have had these kinds of conversations with my friends in 6th grade around boundaries and your mental health is suffering right now. You ought to talk to someone. And like, those are not words that came out of my mouth at 11. It's really cool.
In the coaching industry, and I always tell my attorneys this, so go the coach, so go the coachees.
Yeah.
And you don't even have to say or do anything. But like you said, when you start changing your mindset, your beliefs, all that, your behavior, your energy, they see it, they feel it, they
Mhm.
notice it, they witness it, and next thing you know, it's like a little duck. They're like following in your new pattern, and it's just really interesting. And so often I'll be like, wow, oh, Ella got out of her grouchy phase. I'm like, no, who got out of their
Who started the
grouchy
grouchy phase? Where did that begin? That's so cool. Do you have anything that people who are watching this can do as an exercise or something that you give to your attorneys for like self-reflection that you could share? Since everyone's at home now and
Yeah.
has all of this time and space to potentially do some reflection.
Yeah, I would say from a place of self-reflection is number one, just paying attention to your body and seeing how you feel. I can tell it pretty quick when they show up on a call. My business is 100% virtual. It has been
Oh,
for 22 years. I don't see any clients. My clients are all over the country. In fact, I don't even have any in Colorado.
oh,
So they're all over everywhere. And so I can tell, and having them check in with their body and where their whole, just a simple question of how are you feeling? And just trying to, and what are you thinking? Like doing a thought download. I always have them do a thought download. Even before our calls or our meetings, I will say, I want you to do a thought download and just put everything down on paper that you're thinking. And then I want you to put down everything that you're feeling. And when they come
mm,
to the call, it's really just unpacking that and seeing, what result do you want and how that might be in a disalignment. It's not in alignment with it.
yeah.
And another thing, when I feel them feeling frustration, most entrepreneurs do, when you're feeling a lot of fear or a lot of frustration. I just had this conversation with a client today, is that they're really, really frustrated with their employees. And I said, I give them two simple questions to ask. Either it's the employee frustrated with the entrepreneur frustrated with the employee or wife or whoever it is, of just going to the other person and just asking them a simple question of, what are you not seeing right now that you would like to be seeing or wishing that you were seeing in our relationship? And
Yeah.
just being
Okay.
quiet and
Yeah.
saying, and then asking them what's not working is another way to ask that. If they're like, no, everything's great. Well, what's not working within it? And giving them a safe place to do that. And the second question I have them ask is, what can I do to increase your confidence in me?
Mm. I like
And
that question.
hmm,
I like that question.
you do.
Yeah.
Well, I came up with it because attorneys would always use this word trust. And they'd be
Yeah.
like, well, I don't trust she's going to do blah, blah, blah. Or the employees would come to me and they would say, he or she doesn't trust me. And I kept hearing this over and over and over again. And yeah, there's a piece of it that's trust. But I'm like, at the end of the day, because again, this is a pattern and a behavior that they have. And
Yeah.
I know I have as an entrepreneur and I'm not an attorney, is that I don't have confidence that somebody has my back.
Mm.
And it's not that I trust, because they would constantly say to me, I really like him or her as a person. They're really great. Like, I like them as a person. I just don't trust and X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, how about it's that you don't have confidence? So what do you need to see? Because trust for me in my profession is a really hard thing to shift. I'm not skilled in that, but in regards to the confidence side of things, and figuring out, that's just another way to shift it, because sometimes at least attorneys and entrepreneurs that I work with, they hold on to trust. Like, I don't trust that person. I'm like, well, what would trust look like? And when I
Right.
started unpacking that, it was really either confidence in themselves or it was confidence in the other person they are working with.
Yeah. And trust is such a loaded topic,
Yeah.
and its roots are in probably, who knows, very early childhood, if not before.
Yeah.
And so I think
That's when I send
people,
them to you, because that's not my wheelhouse.
right. Yeah, I think when we're feeling into not being able to trust someone, it comes from a very wounded and young place.
Mm.
And
Hmm.
so I think when you shift it into a more adult word, confidence for me is a more adult word, has more adult energy, then maybe you're actually helping them to access a higher version of themselves rather than this wounded inner child that doesn't trust, can't trust. It's kind of a
Yeah.
nice little twist.
Yeah.
Super cool. Oh, thank you so much for this time.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
It was really
It's so
fun.
fun.
It was really
And
fun.
I'm so grateful for all the work that you are doing in this world. You and Noah, Jamie, I cannot say it enough how incredibly it has shifted everything in my life.
Thank you. I'm very excited always to see you and work with you too.
Yeah. Thank you.
Is there a way that if people have a question about working with attorneys or what you do, or just want to say thanks, is there a way that they can reach out to you and connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to my website. It's
Mhm.
hiringandempowering.com.
Yep.
And I would say join my blog. I've been blogging since 2008,
Oh,
and or my
amazing.
podcast. Yeah. So I do a podcast. I launch at one every Tuesday and a blog every Thursday. And it's not just about working with attorneys. I bring people like Jamie on and
Mm.
a spiritual realm. And of course, if anyone wants to be my guest on my podcast, I'd love to have you. But I just really try to talk about all things in relationship and leadership and communication and energy. And I'm really, really committed to tilting the industry. So if you do have attorney clients, I can pretty much tell you everything about the way that they think, walk, talk, and operate.
Yeah. For 22 years, you've been around them. Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Would you send me links to
Yes,
the blog and the podcast so I can,
absolutely.
if they're not already on your website, are they on your website?
Yeah, they're posted on my
Oh,
website.
great. Then that's
Mhm.
fine. That'll be enough.
Yeah.
People can find it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for
This was
having
so
me.
fun. I love you.
Yeah. Oh, I love you more.
Bye.
Bye.